so scared about it that like everybody was wearing masks. The first day we walked out, you know, there was like but then when we walked outside,
Wszyscy będą zaproszone soboty wieczorem.
nobody's got
Taki, wiecie, taki święta Mikołaja. My zapraszamy, wszyscy jest tam.
which people say don't want to wear masks, you know, in class. And so I developed this kind of for them.
Jest otwarty na system. I na następny tydzień będziemy o 15 biznesmen. Tutaj jest Polska, gdzie Polski jest Pawłowa.
I'm not dangerous, and I would only do this to make you feel better. So I'm not doing it. And it's like, I don't want to be even, but it's like, I don't know. But they don't say anything.
Yeah, but like Randy would be like, or whatever, walk out.
Today, one of my classes, the
I
professor
nas
brought food,
pecan sad,
like a bunch of food, like for lunch.
będziemy zobaczyć
We were sitting around eating it for like
irrigation,
an hour.
jak sadujemy.
Like, once we were done.
Oh, yes, it's surreal. It's like walking.
It's it's too late. It's like,
It didn't spread for a second.
right, things spread. Yeah.
Zobacz tego ksiądza
You don't want
Texas
to-
A&M and President.
Yeah,
Robią takie nowe warzywa.
no, it's hard to get a booster now.
Really?
And the fact that now they
We have an HEB.
Did you walk in or what?
Like, made it one the day before.
But you said it 2 weeks ago.
Andrzej Szwarc.
A month ago.
Well, a month ago, so it was easier. Right now it's almost
Co
impossible.
on będzie powiedział?
Really?
Po polsku. Lepiej mówi.
I got one.
Będzie powiedzieć jak.
Because I was at my 6 month.
You know, they'll delay the next or maybe somewhere else because those places are.
You can
CVS Walgreens are all full appointments, so you go to.
So you check the HEB system like every morning.
It's like.
Bruno, did you get a haircut?
Yes. If I can.
Yeah, and even if I drive out like 30 miles, as early as December 10th in Georgetown.
Yeah, big time. Tuesday.
Yeah, it's not like, you know, I need to get.
Yeah,
no. Yeah. Like if I want to get it, it's not like a huge deal, but one day or another, it's mandatory.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, yeah.
You know, I don't know, people like it.
I don't think.
I have to carry it up my just it's like my backpack. That's the only downside is it doesn't fit into any
But like, you know,
normal.
I wasn't watching media and all.
It's good.
Przez Facebook pisze, ale osobiście. Działam zdjęcia.
Nie byłem
There's dates. Yeah, I want to see like
Łódź były słabe.
And that Friday felt like. But we didn't go outside yesterday because he was feeling better.
Ja powiedziałem, były 2 lata temu.
We won't wear one anymore, we're walking out.
this is right.
Well, I don't think it's, well, it's also his job. The university does.
Co? Co było? Ale było pięknie.
Hopefully,
Stefanie Jamesa był, mój żona był.
Ksiądz Józef widziałam.
Józef przyjechał, tak, bo on jest mój ksiądz.
well, this semester was way better than last.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, so I think it'll keep getting
Patrzę
better.
na zdjęcie, mówię, siedzieć.
I just saw that there's
Ja i bardzo mnie przywiódł, on jest na każdym kampusem. I każdy krużel był, on teraz mieszka w Polsce. Skończyła Texas A&M.
It was.
So ona była nasze drugie przedstawiciel.
No właśnie, to ja chyba poznałam, jak wtedy byłam godzinę i mówiła, że ona nie jest.
And like, so like, I know a few other people, like good people, you know, who say like my child is not vaccinated. But right now they approved vaccine from 5 to 11. So like there's no that, but they still like, you know, they're still. They won't give up, you know, they won't give up. Like this will be forever, I think, until, not, even until like our generation.
Yeah, yeah, skończyli mi.
I'm hoping the paranoia will be around. It'll be around forever. I just.
No,
I think this is.
to jest kiedy najpierw.
I think maybe we should give the voice to Nathan.
All right, well, I thank everybody for being here. Before I start the introduction speech, just want to say two things. First of all, we have Polish desserts here, so kindly provided to us by Pani Kaminska. So thank you, Pani Kaminska. Maybe like as the treat afterwards, we'll all get into it. I'm just thinking, or we could probably do it now. It depends how much people want it. I don't want it to tease people. Okay, maybe yeah, we'll pass it around. How about that? So good. And then second announcement. This Saturday at 6:30, there's a Christmas party at Dr. Jim's house. Everybody is invited. It's going to be super fun. A meal is going to be provided. It's going to be cooked by members of the Texas A&M Polish Association. It's going to be Polish food. It's going to be delicious. Afterwards, we're going to do a bonfire, sit around a bonfire and sing Polish kolędy or Christmas carols. It's going to be great. So we're going to be looking for drivers as usual, and everyone's invited. So please, if you only can, try to be there because it's going to be a great time. All right, with that said, I want to welcome everybody. Before I begin the introduction, I am required by UT Austin's policies regarding student organizations to read the following disclaimer. Tonight's event is being hosted by the Polish Club at UT, a registered student organization. This is not an event sponsored by the University of Texas at Austin. The views expressed tonight are of the student organization / invited guest speaker and do not represent the views of the university or its officers. With that said, I'm thrilled to introduce tonight's distinguished guest speaker, Dr. Jim Mazurkiewicz. Dr. Jim is the Leadership Program Director for Texas A&M Agri-Life Extension and Texas A&M University Professor in the Department of Agriculture, Leadership, Education, and Communications. He earned his bachelor's degree from Texas A&M, his master's from Texas Tech, and his PhD in animal science from Texas A&M. Currently, Dr. Jim provides leadership to 3 extension / university leadership programs. First, the Governor Adolph Briscoe Jr. Texas Agriculture Lifetime Leadership Program. Second, the San Antonio Livestock Exposition. And 3, the Texas Agriculture Lifetime Leadership Emerging Leaders International Exchange Program. Dr. Jim is a native of the Brazos Valley, with his family originally settling in Washington County at the end of the 19th century. Dr. Jim married Kathy Gore of Houston in 1978 and are the proud parents of 3 children, James, Kathy Ann, and Stephanie. Dr. Jim is also the president of the Brazos Valley Fair and Expo and chairman of the Bryan / College Station Chamber of Commerce Agriculture Council. In his spare time, Dr. Jim operates a commercial beef cattle herd and is a certified national / international beef cattle judge. He has judged over 450 shows in 10 states, including every major show in Texas. He enjoys instructing youth in livestock judging. Most relevant to our cause, Dr. Jim is a board member of the Polish American Chamber of Commerce, is president of the Polish American Council of Texas, or the PACT, and is the advisor to the Texas A&M Polish Association, or TAMPA. Dr. Jim is a tremendous leader in the Texas Polish community. In fact, his service to Texas Polonia has been so great that Dr. Jim has received the Commander's Cross Medal of Merit from the President of Poland and the Medal of Honor from the Polish Minister of Agriculture. Before we start tonight's event, I would like to provide everyone with a brief roadmap of how the event will proceed. Dr. Jim will speak for roughly, well, we started a little late, so let's say 30 minutes, I'm not sure exactly. And then about his family history, the 5 different Polish dialects, and his experience serving the Texas Polish community. He will then take Q&A for around 5 to 10 minutes. With that said, I now welcome Dr. Jim.
Dziękujemy. Ja bardzo się cieszę, jestem tutaj z nami. I'm real excited to be here with each of you tonight. When Nathan called, he said, "You want to do it by Zoom, or would you come?" And I said, "Sure, I'll come." And I think it's more how to say personable, and it's just better to do it in person. And it just seems a little bit more distant the other way. A couple of things is I want to reiterate, I would love to invite all of you, your friend or whatever, just let us know for Saturday night to come in and share with us the Christmas party at our house. And so please come if you want to come. If it's too far to drive back, if you want to sleep over, you can stay over as well. I've got plenty of room, so don't worry about that. Also, I'm going to have a young man from Poland with us. His uncle is a Eucharistic minister at Our Lady of Częstochowa. I forgot his name, but anyway, he wants to get into the beef cattle business. He's a big farmer over there. He's about 21 years old. He's got about 2,000 acres in Poland, and they're wanting to get into beef business. My actual training, my PhD, my BS, everything's ag and beef oriented. And I have registered cattle. I've got cows myself still to this day. And I'm very involved in that as well. As Nathan said, I'm very involved in the Polish community in Texas, continue to be involved on a daily basis. Daily, I'm talking to Poland every day to somebody or helping connect, put people together and step back and let them go ahead. I'm sort of a bridge builder, a connector. Next week, I'll be hosting with Susanna with PI, the Polish Investment and Trade Agency out of Houston. I'm helping her host 15 businessmen and women from the Polish American Chamber of Commerce, or the Polish Chamber of Commerce in Warsaw. We're the American one out of Houston. But anyway, I'm going to be hosting them, and they are involved in the food business. Everything from vegetables to fruits to meats and whatever from all over Poland, not just Warsaw, but the headquarters is there. They're going to be here in Austin for a couple of days. They're going to be in College Station for one afternoon. I'm going to have them for dinner at my house, and then they're going to go back to Houston and fly back out. If you'd like to meet them, I invite you to meet them as well. And they'll be here. I'm going to be giving a tour, a personal tour of the Capitol on Thursday about noon, I think is what's on the schedule. And I learned some new information about the two statues I'm adding to my Polish. I think Eric gave the Polish Polonia deal, and he said that most of those were slides from my presentation. He didn't give all of them, but that's an hour-and-a-half presentation. But since then, I'm going to add to that. I have found out the sculpture for those two statues as you walk in from the Congress. When you walk in from that side, the side that's facing that way, that would be south. The two statues of Sam Houston and Stephen F. Austin were carved by Elizabeth Ney, whose mother was Polish, and I think she was a Kaminska. And she came with her husband. Her husband was French-German, but her mama was 100% Polish, and she's the one that sculpted those two white marble statues of the two early heroes of Texas history. So I think that's pretty cool. And I just found that out by accident because I was researching the Leando plantation there where they trained troops for the Civil War in Hempstead, and that's the Brazos Valley. And I'm big on history and everything. And I just stumbled into that. And I said, oh my God. And it said she had a Polish mom. So then I looked that up. So I'm going to put that in there to talk about that and to celebrate that as well. Well, let me just say this a little bit about me. I've been in agriculture my whole life. I've been with the A&M system 43 years. I also lived in Chicago a year before I went to work for Texas A&M. I worked in the old meat yards where the book Jungle was written. Okay, I actually worked in the last beef and lamb killing and processing plant in downtown Chicago. And when I worked the plant, they actually thought I was born in Poland. And a lot of those people thought I was first generation or I just come over on the boat. My English was, and I got a Texas accent now, but my English was still probably had a little brogue to it, And, but I had a good time because most of the people working in those plants were Polish. And I chose to go there. I could have gone anywhere in the United States, but I chose there as a 21-year-old graduate from A&M, going into the meat grading business because it was a big Polish population. So I have been true to my heritage, true to my roots my entire life. And I have my grandmother to thank for that. And so Franciszka Józwiak Mazurkiewicz. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. I'm going to talk about my family, and I hope that's okay that we talk about that. So you know a little bit about me. You see me as the professor, the head of the Dolph Briscoe Texas Agriculture Lifetime Leadership. Dolph was twice governor of Texas. He's a graduate of the University of Texas. And he gave me $5 million. He didn't graduate from A&M. Why? Because he loved agriculture and he loved rural Texas. And he loved the program I'm leading. That program is equivalent to a master's degree in actual classroom. It's 500 hours worth of training. And I do 24 people every 2 years. So that's like having 24 master's students. And I provide all the curriculum and all the training and the education they get in that 2-year period of time. And I raise all the money too. I've raised over $12 million in the last 20 years since I've been there. And I'm the only entity in the College of Ag that's 100% self-funded and no taxpayer dollars. So that tells me a little bit about that. But now let me tell you about Jim Mazurkiewicz and where we got started, okay? Because, you know, you see the guy today, or you see Professor Kaminska over here, you see them as that, but you know where we came from. We were students like you at one time. I come from very humble beginnings, very poor family. And why can I speak Polish, Bruno, at 5th generation? Why? It's a treasure of the poor. We were very poor. We stayed close to our roots and our heritage, and I inherited that. And what a beautiful treasure that I can speak it today. I can travel Poland by myself. I did not inherit anything from my family material-wise or money-wise, but that gift of my heritage. And I've always been proud to be Polish. And people ask me, 1st generation, how come you're so Polish in your 5th generation? We never knew we weren't anything but Polish. I've always been Polish. And your kids and your grandkids, someday you're going to understand that when they're 3rd and 4th generation. But to have somebody, but to be raised poor, and the treasures I've received from my family was the gift of my heritage. So let me tell you, this is what we're going to talk about. Am I in the way over here? These are the different subjects we're going to talk about. I gave you a little bit of introduction about my professor part. We're going to talk about Jim Mazurkiewicz, just Jim, okay? I'm going to show you a map of Texas and the Polish parishes. The reason I did this, I didn't get to do it, but I was going to give this presentation to the village from where my family came. Okay, they're interested about us in Texas. What other state in the union that everybody knows other than Texas? Everybody knows where Texas is, but you ask them where Iowa or Wyoming, Idaho, some of those, they don't know. But you know, we're proud to be Texas, and we're the only sovereign nation to ever join the United States. We were a country for 9 years, and we had 4 presidents. Okay, my Mazurkiewicz family history, the villages where we came from: Węglewo, Powiedzicka, Ledna Gora, Sławno, Poznan, Morowana, Goslina. Let me say, you know where these are? They're all the way around the Glacier Lake where Mieszko I had the first zamek, the first palace. My family's from all around this Glacier Lake. And that's where my family comes from, where the first capital of Poland, where Mieszko I and Dobrowa, she was a Czech princess, that Poland got started in 966. And we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about my maternal ancestors were from Jasewo and Zlanova, and then Razin Helminski. That's right around north of Toruń. Okay, but Jasewo is right in Wrocław. And I'm going to show you exactly the triangle where all my family comes from. It's all Wielka Polska at that time. And the 3 migrations to Texas. You hear a lot about Panna Maria. It is the oldest Polish church and the oldest Catholic Polish school in the United States. Was started here in South Texas. But it's so historic and so famous, we forget about the Brazos Valley, who was only 11 years, 12 years behind that. We get overshadowed. It's sort of like the second child in the family. You always hear about the oldest kid, but you don't hear much about the middle child. You know what I mean? So we feel like the middle child sometimes. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Brazos Valley and why we settled there and we didn't come here or somewhere else. Because the better soils, better climate, more rain, and they actually, it's better farming where we were. The 3, I've talked about 3 is actually 4. When I did this, I didn't talk about this one. And I call these 2 as 1, Zalewo. That's the Panna Maria and that's the Brazos Valley. So there's really, I call it 4 now. Polish language and folk music that made Texas, Texas. The country music, the roots of country music, the Texas music. Where does those roots come from? It has our music in it. And I'm going to talk about that. The dialect that I speak, and I've been told, my dad was told when he was working in Houston in the 1950s, he didn't speak good Polish. Piotr Przybylski sat down with my dad at Thanksgiving and said he talks perfect Polish, but it's Poznan dialect. Okay, what he was doing back in the 1950s was talking with people from the Gural region. Well, the people from Kashubi and the Gural can't understand each other either. Okay, it's that different. Okay, so my point is he was speaking good Polish, but they didn't understand that our language, our dialect has been preserved through 2 world wars and was never infiltrated by any other foreign powers or anybody else because we were poor. We stayed in one region for 100 and something years without any influence. And we'll talk about that. I've had 3 linguistics. They were here with you, Ms. Dr. Kaminsky. And when they went to Chapel Hill and did that filming, they felt like they found the gold mine. They couldn't believe that they felt like they stepped back in time 140 years to hear us speak in that dialect. And I'm going to show you some of the words here in a minute. I've been trying to document those that I can remember and those that I know. And so it makes it difficult for me to try not to talk into that dialect when I go over there, but they still come out sometimes. Okay, culture, what we do here, Dożynki, Kolendy, Wigilia, Polish weddings, opłatki and stuff like that. Polish independence, we're still celebrating that. Then my 35th wedding anniversary, we're going to talk about that in the church of my great-grandparents in the same church. Several years ago, we did that. And the guy that gave us the bread ended up being the Minister of Agriculture of the whole country. And I'll talk about all that as well. Cooperation and some other things. All right. You've seen this map. I was in the same presentation that Eric did. I'm probably in the way here. But anyway, I just showed that. I showed that I do about 3,000 students every semester in the fall recruiting for my exchange program. So the whole College of Agriculture gets to hear about all of them. Gets to hear about Poland, Polish agriculture, the GDP of Poland, Texas, the world. Why is it important to travel abroad? Why is it important to understand international trade, international marketing, international economy? We're in a world market today. And it's not like it's just down here at the end of the city limits or to the county line. We are in a global market. The pandemic taught us that. You can see that because of the supply chain issues of when we get stuff from all over the world. So I like to show the next one is how big Texas is laid over Europe. And it's actually closer from Warsaw to Paris than it is from Texline to Brownsville or from East Texas to El Paso. About 3 miles difference. Also, did you know Texline up there in the very top is 3 miles closer to Canada than it is down here? If you flip it up. That just shows you how big the state is, okay? All right, this is what Texas looked like when the Brazos Valley, the people started coming to the Brazos Valley. This is downtime Brown in about 1870. Brian, yesterday, celebrated 150 years as a city. Yesterday was the birthday. I was interviewed by TV, Channel 3, and I did about a 30-minute documentary about why the Polish people came to the Brazos Valley. And they put it up on the city history deal. You can go and watch me. I've also have it on Facebook, on my Facebook line, about me talking why we came, who we came, and why we came, because of Meyer Levi, the Polish Jew that invited us and recruited us to replace the slaves that were released from the Emancipation Proclamation. We came as indentured servants, and I'm going to talk about that. But that's what it looked like. And 3 years later, they started the Catholic Church. The first thing they do in Bryan, Texas, the St. Joseph's Catholic Church was started by Polish immigrants. In the church on the right side is Święta Kazimierz, and he's holding a Polish flag, and he's been holding that flag, and that statue's been there since 1873. To this day, even the priest didn't know he was a Polish saint. I had to argue with him, tell him who it was. But anyway, and he's a Monsignor, by the way. Okay, but he's Irish. All right, this is Bryan, Texas, the Brazos Valley. This isn't the only place they came, but I'm just showing you what some of the bigger towns looked like 20 years later. Now we've got electricity. Believe that? That was a big deal to have, lights. They didn't have quite like this. There might be one bulb in the whole room, but anyway, they had electricity. But now you can see how much wealthier the people are. The animals are fatter, fancier wagons and things like that. If you'll go back and look at the ox carts and some of the cheap looking type of vehicles that they had. This is Brenham, Texas, where my people came in 1870 and 1855 is the courthouse over there. We got there in 1867 to the Brazos Valley as indentured servants. Half of them went to New Waverly. You've heard that. We just had a big celebration. But the other half went to industry. And it's right next to that. At that time, that was all one county, hadn't been divided up yet. Why did they go to industry? It's like Mabusha would say. We didn't say babcha, we said busha, babusha. It's not Russian, that's Velika Polska dialect for grandma. Anyway, the thing is, why did they go there? Because industry was the first German settlement in Texas in the 1830s. We were Prussian when we came, we spoke German. So we were trying to assimilate. We could speak German, so we could do trade with them. But also those plantations there in Austin County on the Brazos River, half that first 120 went to New Waverly and the other half went to Washington County, Austin County, and industry. And then Brenham was the county seat. That was the courthouse there. But that's what it looked like when we got here. Okay, Pana Maria got here in 1854. We got here in 1867, April. They got here in December, almost in 1866. But anyway, there were stores already, but not many. But just think how hard it was in Pana Maria. There was nothing there. And there's less rain there, a lot of mesquite, poor soil, rocky. They had it tough. And also they got hoodwinked a little bit because the land was sold for twice what it was worth. And that wasn't fair. But those people were tough and they made it. And they had it actually a lot harder than we did in this area where we didn't have to live in mud huts and things like that. But they did the first year. Okay, but just wanted to show you what it looked like. It was already something there, but we came and worked and picked the cotton in the place of the indentured, the slaves that were released. Some stayed and worked as well. But I grew up side by side with African Americans picking cotton myself till I was 13 years old by hand, side by side. We grew up with African Americans. And I grew up in Waller and Washington counties where there's two heaviest concentration of African Americans in Texas. When I grew up in Chapel Hill, Texas, most of the African Americans could also speak Polish because they worked with us side by side. And I'll never forget holding hands with my grandfather going down Chapel Hill. And he told me, nic nie mówi po polsku, because oni rozumiem, co ty mówisz. And they said, don't say anything in Polish because they understand what you're saying. A 6-year-old might say something stupid, okay? And something, whatever. But anyway, we did side by side. And you might be surprised by that. But we grew up simultaneously, just like the Jews and the Christians grew up together in Poland. We were always open to minorities and cooperation and collaboration. So keep that in mind, okay? Polish settlements. This is a map. This is the Pana Maria group, and this is the Brazos Valley. There's 14 parishes here that they didn't all start in 1854. They go all the way to 1900. The same thing here. And there were two groups that came. They came from Upper Silesia, but not all of them. There are some from Poznan as well, and I have that. Cotulla, Texas, down here. The name Cotulla was started by a man that was from Poznan. He wasn't from Silesia. But anyway, he registered his cattle brand in Pana Maria because there were Polish people and he had something in common. They considered themselves Polish, not Silesian. They were considered Polish and they were proud of that. But we have different dialects. You have Silesian, Wielka Polska, Górale, etc. Okay, Kashubin, we're going to talk about that. So here's the two. This is along the Brazos River. And originally it was right here where the 12 plantation owners got together. Meyer Levi owned 3 general stores, one in New Waverly, one in Navasota, and one in Mahia. And the 12 plantation owners went to him because he was Polish. He could speak Polish. He was a Polish Jew. And this is in 1866, okay? And so they asked him if he could recruit. So he went to Poland, recruited 120 people to come back to work on the plantations. And that's how we got here. Father Machagamba came here 2 years before the group came, and he came here on purpose. And I think because there were Polish people in New Braunfels already, they may have written back how well and how prosperous the Germans were doing. He decided to come to Texas and then saw that. Then he invited his family. I'm still working on that, but I do know there were 2 or 3 families already in New Braunfels that were Polish descent. And so that may have been the reason he came here. He may just come out of just curiosity. But then he found out how well people were doing, and that's why he came, then invited his family and all those others. And then this big migration started here in this South Texas, where the PHC Center is, where y'all went here the other day. I'm on that board as well, and I'm proud to be working with them. Here's the 2 migrations right here. The Upper Silesia right here for the South Texas Pana Maria. And then right in here is Kanitsa, where actually Meyer Levi was from, and he recruited the first 120 from right around here, 50-mile radius of there. That was for the Brazos Valley group. And this is just the same thing again, and it talks about the 4 different groups. We had 2 of them, Zaleben, that's for bread, for a better life, for the economy. They had it tough over there. Bismarck was tough on them. And I have that in my other slide because they were trying to Germanize it. In 1830 already, the courts were not allowing to use any Polish. Everything had to be in German. So if you couldn't speak German, you couldn't even defend yourself or talk, you know, in the language. So think about trying to go to some other country and defend yourself and not being able to speak your native language or defend yourself in the courts. Then about 1850s, everything was already in German for schools. And so they had against the church, because the church was sort of like the extension service who I work for. They're the ones that work all over. I'm with A&M, so we spread information, research information out to all the counties. The church was that extension service that helped spread information, that also was the conduit to the people. And there was a priest in every village, a priest in every community, or a rabbi in every community as well. And so they were against that, and they were trying to de-Catholic. They said the Catholic Church was too strong. So they embraced their heritage, their language, and their faith. And so that was the main reasons they left Prussia. My family said this: "Mnie uciekaliśmy Polsce, uciekaliśmy Prussię." We did not run away from Poland. We ran away from Prussia. And when we came here, we started New Polonia. And that's why I can speak it, and I'm as Polish as I am today. We like to show this, if we do that. Okay. Anyway, I think Eric talked about this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I'm spending a lot of time on the Battle of San Jacinto and the 43 freedom fighters. I have brought that to the attention of Texas Polonia already now 3 years ago. We now have a roll-up about Andrei Felix Warszawski, and I think he played a bigger role in the Battle of San Jacinto than we all realize, because he was a trained professional in the military university in Warsaw. So were the other 42. And if he could have spoke the English language, they'd have made him a captain, but they left him a lieutenant because he didn't have command of the English language. But he was still a strategist, okay? And he was the one, we think, from what I've been reading and what we found, but I've got to prove this, that met with Sam Houston to blow up the bridges, to trap Santa Anna ahead of time. So when they did attack, there was no place to get away because he was surrounded by water on 3 sides, and they came in from the 4th side. The battle was 18 minutes and 30 seconds. We didn't lose a man. They lost over 200. Santa Anna escaped the next day. Warszawski's patrol brought in this gentleman in peasant clothing, and the Mexicans that they had captured was saluting him. They knew they had somebody of importance, but they had no idea that it was Santa Anna. And then Santa Anna turned over Texas to Sam Houston, but it was not recognized at that time. And so there was a little bit of dispute about it, but he did. He was the commanding general, but he was not president at that time. He was president. He resigned 2 years before that so he could lead the troops against the Texans who were revolting. He then became president again later. And but it was finally ratified that Texas belonged to Texas. Okay, but technically Texas was given to the Texans on April 22nd when Santa Anna was presented to Sam Houston. So anyway, I'm working on that. My goal is to have a bust made and get approved by the Texas Historical Commission and put in the rotunda of the Texas Capitol, because in 1936, the 100th year anniversary of Texas, the World's Fair was in Dallas. And they honored Warszawski as one of the 3 most important heroes in early Texas history. Sam Houston, the first president, okay, and general for the Battle of San Jacinto and of our military to help us win our independence. Stephen F. Austin, the father of Texas, who brought the first 300 to Texas. And Andrei Felix Warszawski for helping to capture Santa Anna. And so we're working on that. I've got some books. I've got one book that there's only 4 in the United States. It was found for me in Poland, and we're translating it into English. So those of you that are interested, it's not that big. I already Google translated the thing and read the whole thing myself the first day I got it. And then I've got another one that's also about him, but it's a fictitious novel, okay? But there is some good information in that other one, and I want to get the Polish government to help me because I know there's some information over there, some more information. So anyway, let's talk about the dialects. How many dialects were there at one time in Poland? Not this one. Originally, there were 23 different dialects. Today, it's going to get down to one. And it's what I call the Warszawa dialect. Because why do I call it that? It's the capital. It's going to dominate. But why? Because of television, or radio, television, the internet, whatever. And that's the capital city. So that language will dominate. And if you don't believe me, go back and research all the way back to the 1800s and find out that there were 23 dialects. But we weren't quite as integrated as we are today. Okay? Even today in Texas, I never said you guys, because I knew you were from New York if you said that. But I say that, catch myself saying it sometimes because I hear these guys on television doing it all the time. So I'm picking up some of that New Yorkish stuff too, because we've got this TV or internet, whatever today. So I call the language they're speaking today the Warszawa dialect because that is the capital, that is the place, the seat of government for the national government, but they're still within the countryside. Not that they are less educated than anybody else, but they still speak, you can still hear the dialect in the countryside. Now, all right, let me just say this, the villages of my family, I told you where the big cities was Poznan, Bydgoszcz, Toruń, and Inowrocław is where my family from. So see this little triangle right here? That's the Wielka Polska dialect, even to this day, spoken in the villages. That's where my family's from. And from Poznan to Inowrocław is about 40, 45 miles. It's not that far. It's closer than here to Bryan, okay? So you can see all of my family spoke the same dialect. So we had no problem talking. But there were some people in Chapel Hill that were from Płock, and there were some on the Russian side, but it was just right on the line that uses a few different words or a little different dialect than what we would say. We say piasek, and they piosek, and they say piasek for sand. The O and the I, and we're going to talk about that dialect difference in a minute. They would argue about that, okay? I've got some construction worker friends in Bryan College Station. They have Hispanics working for them. The two men got into a fist fight in the ditch over the word light bulb, how to say it in Spanish. There are 5 different ways to say it in Spanish, depending on which dialect and which region and which Hispanic country you come from. In Poland, there's 5 ways to say potato, depending on where you're from. Okay, we say piri, pirka. You know exactly what I am, a Poznański pira. I'm a potato head from Poznan, okay? Then you got grule, you got kartofle, you got ziemniaki, and rzepa is from Czarne Danites. I know what rzepak is. This is rzepa. It's only used in that one village, and that comes from Krozew. And then all these other górale, you know, they've got a word for it. So depending on the word you use for that one vegetable, we know where you're from. And by the way, that word, potatoes are not from Europe. They're from South America. Why did the Poznański people say piri, pira for Peru? Because that's where it came from. And they were part of Germany. And so that probably came from them, and they were using that and kind of made a Ponglish or a German-ish or whatever, something word out of that. And the thing came from west to east, a lot of things at that time. Vegetables, I know, came with the first queen of Italy, came from the south. We say marionka, you say marianek for the same thing. It's a spice. It's like oregano. It's in that family. And that's, we'll talk about that in a minute too. But anyway, but I wanted you to see that. Now, why is this right here kind of Novi dialect mieszane? Because this was not a part of Poland until after World War II. And they re-established people in here from all different parts. So all these dialects in here are mixed up. But when I go back here and I go into the villages there, I don't have a problem with what I learned speaking. Like Indic is gua, okay? And I will show you a whole bunch more in a minute. But anyway, this is sort of mild Polska. This is Śląsk. Then you've got Mazurkiewicz. Then you've got Kosciuszki up there, okay? Then you got Novi dialect and mieszane. They're mixed up, new dialect mixed up there and there, when those areas were added. Now, we lost the province in Poland, this Wolf area. There were 3 million Poles left on this side that are Polish descent and Polish heritage. But when Stalin redrew the map, Churchill and Roosevelt didn't want to fight with him because he was going to start World War III if he didn't get his way, and he wanted that as a prize for helping the Allied forces win World War II. And so Poland got redrawn like this. And today, everybody speaks Polish all over, but like I said, the dominant dialect today is going to be Warszawia, okay? It was what I call it. Okay, these are some of the words that I'm going to show you about our dialect. The first time I went to Poland and I started speaking, I didn't know there was differences in dialect. They thought I just came from Mars somewhere and they didn't have a clue, you know. So for, okay, on the left, when you say on for he, it's when, okay? Ona, wena, oni, winning. Ojciec, it's wojciec. I may not have spelled it right, but that's how you say it, okay? So when I say the sign of the cross, Ojca, syna, dua świętego, amen. If I go ojca, I know better, but my daddy will stop me. He's 89 years old, and he says, speak like you were taught to speak, okay? And so I have to, even at Christmas, I'll have to start over with the prayer, okay? So anyway, Wafka and Wofka. So you see where the A and the O is changed out? That is that dialect from that region. There were 23 dialects. Ask the linguistics. Go back. And then as we homogenized and we have, you know, we've got interstates and we're doing intercommerce, all these things like that. Now with the communication we have, it's going down to one, and we're going to lose all of these. But I wrote them down so people would know that I wasn't crazy and that I did speak good Polish of my dialect, okay? And, you know, like pasek I posek, pravda pravda, kokut kokut, you know, stuff like that. Anyway, rząd I rajka. They still say rajka for row, like a row in the vegetable garden or a row of corn. We say rajka. I go back there and they know what I'm saying. I go on the other side of Poland and they look at me like, you know, what are you talking about? And so they say rząd for row. But here we got chopka, chopka, ptak, ptok. And I was speaking in that, you know, dialect like that. And so anyway, go back to 1000, 1200, whenever they started writing, and go read some of this old stuff. You're going to see some of that from the different regions, those they're going to write like that. And it's just like, go read Thomas Jefferson. Do we speak like him today? No. And another thing that I give Polish people a hard time, Dr. Kamiński, is they're using a lot of Ponglish now. It's English words with the Polish dialect to it. And I'll have to think about it a minute, but I hear a lot of English words that they're using more and more and more all the time. And I give them a hard time about it. But anyway, it's just teasing is all. There's some more words right there. And it just goes on. And as I find them, I kind of just do it. This is the church of the Mazurkiewicz family. 9 years ago, my wife and I went back and renewed our 35th wedding anniversary in this church of my great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents that came over. And it's a wooden church. It's a new one. It's only like 350 years old, because there's older ones over there, but the one burnt before that, and they built another wooden one, but this one's still standing. And this area of Poland, they're around Pobiedziska, between Gniezno and Poznań. There's about 10 or 15 of these wood churches, and they have what they call a wooden church trail. Like we got the painted churches here in Texas, they do the same thing here. And I'm going to talk about music in a minute. I still play and sing in the dialect in the same music of the great-great-grandparents from 140 years ago. But anyway, this is Stefania, this is James, and I'm taking the picture, so I'm not even. This is my great-grandfather right here, Barzieniec, and Anna. His mother was a Kosciuszko. And we think she is the granddaughter of Kosciuszko's brother. Because Tadeusz Kosciuszko had no children, but his brothers did. And I was shocked to find that out. And my DNA shows that Kosciuszko was from near Lithuania. And so does my DNA from that side. So there is a clue that there may be something there. And she was raised right on the lake of the lake where the zamek is from Mieszko Pierwszy, Ledna Góra. And these are the children that they had. And this is my grandfather. He was the baby. His mother came to Poland. I have her picture. She was born in 1843. When y'all come next Saturday, I'll show you her mother, 1822. That's 200 years ago. And I've got a big oval frame. It's original glass, original frame and everything. The pictures were done in about 1880 when they left for Poland. It's the original frames. And then they kept it because they would never see their mothers again. This is her Anna's mother right here in Poland. She never left. She was too old to leave. And I knew this baby right here. That was my great uncle, my grandfather's oldest brother. And this is in a village there. This is not Kosciuszko. This is the Połuska. I got them mixed up when I did this. But anyway, that's still my great-great-grandmother. There's my grandfather. Every generation, I'm fifth generation, that was born here, married here, died here, has all been going through St. Stanislaus Catholic Church in Chapel Hill. And everybody, all 13 of the 16 great-great-grandparents that came over are buried there. All 8 great-grandparents, 4 grandparents, mom and dad are still living. Kathy and I will be buried there as well. We got married in that church. My kids were baptized in that church, just like Our Lady of Czestochowa is the center of Polonia for Houston. Then we've got St. Peter and Paul in Dallas. We have the Austin here with Father Yusuf here when he does twice a month. I know when you got Polish school here, it's the center of Polonia. And so we are still true to that in Chapel Hill, and I do a lot of things with them. This is the Polish school, Pulaski School in Chapel Hill. My great-grandfather let him have 2 acres. He had a very long place with very little frontage. And so he kept just a little lane, and he let him have 2 acres on the front to build the first Polish school there in Washington County. It was called Pulaski. And I need to cut this off. I bought some embryos last night. Anyway, these are those kids, and I forget what year this is. Does it say on there? 1927, that picture was from that school. This is my dad and mother and our family a few years ago. This is my brother. We look a lot alike, but he's a little chunkier than me, a little stouter made. And this is my family here, my mom and dad. And this is his 2 kids right here and one of their grandkids, and my family, my sister on the end. That house right there is the original house that my great-great-grandparents had, and we still have that house and the land to this day when we came here 140 years ago. And my sister lives in that house today. This is the church of Sławno Święta Mikołaj, which is 8 miles from Węglewo. It's just on the other side of that lake. That's where the Józwiaks, the Królczyks, the Cegielskis, I don't think several of them from Chapel Hill came from that particular church. This is my great-great-grandfather, Józwiak. He had 9 or 10 kids. His oldest son, which was my great-grandfather, had 14. My grandmother, who's the one that his granddaughter was my grandmother, his granddaughter, was number 3 out of number 14. She never learned to speak a word of English. All my grandparents, all 4 of them died speaking Polish only. My parents' first language was Polish. They didn't learn English till they went to school, and I'm the first generation to speak English as my first language out of 5 generations in 140 years. But that's Piotr. He helped start the Chapel Hill Church. His name is on the bell. Piotr Józwiak, it's written on the bell. He bought it and donated it to that church. And this is a picture of the first church that was built at St. Stanislaus. That particular church right there was blown down in 1900 by the, you remember the Galveston hurricane? You heard about that? Where there were tornadoes that spin off of that. We're not that far from Galveston, probably 2-3 hours, whatever, 2 hours, 2.5. Anyway, tornado spin off, blew that thing down, and then they had to build another one. Then the second one burnt down. And then the third one that you see today, the Spanish style, is the church that's sitting there today. This is Piotr, my great-great-grandfather, and his kids at his wife's funeral that day. That was just a picture. They didn't take many pictures when they took them. That's all I have of that particular family. But you can see they're not very wealthy. They're just, average folks. I didn't come from very wealthy people. I'm the first generation to go past the 7th grade on both sides of my family. I'm the first one on my dad's side that can read and write in English. And my dad cannot read and write to this day. This is the Józwiak. This is my grandmother right here, my Busha right here. And she married that little boy in that picture I showed you a while ago. The other one, these pictures were made in 1910. And this is his younger brother, Michael. This is Stella Twardowska. And this is Andrzej Józwiak. We called him Henry. I don't know why they say Henry for Andre, but they did that. I knew all 14 of these kids. This one lived to 99 years of age. When I went to Poland for the first time, she couldn't wait to hear my stories. And she was 94. And I got to tell her in Polish, in our dialect, what I saw, what I learned, and who I went and who I met with. It's very touching. And this is, oh, I'm not on that page yet. And this is the same kids that survived this far. This is Henry or Andre and Stella, and that's their 50th wedding anniversary. Okay, my godfather is this guy right here, just got back from World War II, right here. His name was Mikołaj. And this is the chickens, and this is his house. And I spent a Vigilia in this house until they passed away. And then we went to where my sister lives, that house I showed you over there a while ago. And he had about 200 acres. We had 200 acres. The Mazurkiewicz's did. The Malinowskis had 500. And this is my family tree right here. You can see who I'm kin to. I don't know if it's completely filled out because this slide's got some time on it. But anyway, there's Twardowskis and Krulczyks and Józwiaks and Kosciuszko, and you can see Pokluska and some of the last names of some of my families, Kobus, Roshinska, some of the ladies' names that get lost. And that's why I want to show that, because the men's names survive on, but the women in your family, you need to showcase and see that as well. Okay, let's talk about music real quick. Those are some of the songs right there that became famous Texas country dance hall classics and still are to this day. And the first one is the Westphalia Waltz. Cotton Collins made that popular, and Hank Thompson in 1955 made a #1 record and gold record out of Nashville with that song. And it's really Pytała się pani. But Cotton had heard that song in Poland during World War II, loved the melody, came back, played it. He was a famous fiddle player in Texas dance halls all over Central Texas. And he got so popular and requested so many times that it made it all the way to Nashville, and Hank Thompson recorded it, and they put some English words to it. But Hank just heard it, came back, didn't know it was Polish, just loved the melody. But it's been played all over Texas, and especially in Chicago and New York forever, because it's our deal. And I just learned about this just a few years ago when a Hollywood person came and did a documentary on that about 5 or 6 years ago. And we had a premiere, and there's a film documentary about that song that was shown in Fremont a few years ago about Pytała się pani. That is the most popular Texas dance hall classic to this day. You'll hear it at Green Hall, you'll hear it wherever. And it is a beautiful, beautiful melody waltz. But if you understand Polish, the actual words are hilarious, and I'm not going to talk about it on here. But anyway, I'll share them with you. You boys will love it. Okay. Maiden's Prayer. Modlitwa Dziewicy. Okay, that was recorded and published in 1856, but it's called Maiden's Prayer. It's a beautiful, beautiful melody. And so that's a dance hall class. Put your little foot. That word Varsovia is French for meaning from Warsaw. It became the rage of Europe in the 1850s. It actually made it to Mexico City when Maximilian I came in 1864 to be emperor of Mexico. He was an Austrian prince. Austria had 1/3 of Poland at that time. He brought musicians. He brought the polka, the mazurek, the oberek to Mexico. He was killed 4 years later, and all those musicians and all those people he invited, most of them fled north to Texas or the northern border of Mexico. Today, you can hear that. They have made that music their own. They put it in their language. There's a redova. You know what a redova is? It's Spanish for the Polish oberek. That's what it means. Look it up. Okay? They'll put your little foot there. I can show you a deal, and it's beautiful. I thought it was always a Texas cowboy classic, but it's not. It's Polish. And I first learned to dance it in a Texas dance hall with cowboy boots up to here and spurs in West Texas, where the Marlboro commercial for the cigarette was made. Well, I was the county agent in West Texas, and I didn't have a clue that that thing was Polish. I just thought it was a fun, pretty dance, okay? And so also cattle call. I just heard it today on Sirius Radio on Willie Nelson's Old Country. I listen to that all the time. They just played that cattle call. It's actually Pavel's Waltz from 1927. And those are the guys that made that song. I made a recording of it in Chicago. And then they took it and changed it, slowed it up, changed it. It's the same melody as the cattle call, the famous Western, when you watch a Western movie and they're moving the cows, you know, the cattle trail and all that, they're playing that, woo, 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 that's that song. But anyway, it's Polish. Okay, the other one is We Left Our Wives at Home, Nie Pójdę do Domu. And if you haven't heard that, I grew up dancing and singing to that song. I had no idea it was Polish. Okay. All right, these guys right here, picture in 1915, New Waverly, Texas, some of the early musicians, the sons of some of the early immigrants. Now, if you look right here, this is a clarinet. He's got a lasca, some whiskey. His wedding was going on. A contrabass and a violin. You don't see a trumpet. You don't see an accordion either, do you? That's all there is in a Polish band, original Polish band. We adopted the accordion after 1820 when it was invented by the Germans. We were part of Prussia and we adopted the accordion. I played the accordion. My grandfather played a German Hohner, one button. I still have it in my garage. I'll show it to you Saturday. And so, but these are the original instruments, the clarinet, the contrabass, and the violin are the original village Polish music. Now, we've got symphony, we've got orchestra, and we have gone, and Poland is as good a musicians as there anywhere in the world. And I'm friends with most of them, and I've invited them here and hosted them many, many times. But I'm just going to tell you, even Chopin's music started in the village, and he took it and made it classical and made it very, very popular, very famous, and very, how do I want to say, hard to play, very high-end music, okay? This is in Chapel Hill in 1920. This guy, he is still, this is his dad, but he's still living. And again, you can see this is Wielka Polska. See this bat? It's a whip. I have one too. That was the head of the wedding. And he was in charge of everything, the traditions, one after another. And they called it the druzba. I know what a druzba is, like the best man, but the druzba also meant in Wielka Polska, the master of ceremonies. And I have one of those. I carried one in New Waverly the other day. And as president, I was in charge of the deal, and I was carrying that true tradition. But you see the same instruments here: a contrabass, 2 violins, a clarinet, and that's it. And you know, they say you're not from Texas unless you have a fiddle in the band. Have you ever heard that? Well, guess who helped bring fiddles to Texas? Your people. The Irish did, and the Poles. The fiddle is not a German instrument. They are the accordion, they're the trumpets, they're the brass. So is in Czech, because they were very German, but the Polish are string instruments, okay? This is a Polish wedding in Chapel Hill in 1911. And you can see the same instruments in here. There's a contrabass, there's a fiddle and a clarinet in here, but look at this druzba with this bat right here. I can still remember that. I got my britches dusted a couple of times for sliding across the wooden dance floor when they were trying to dance when I was a little kid. And I'm going to go through these real quickly. This is me and James playing. This is me playing and still playing the same music. And we do that not because it's popular. We do it because it's our history. It's our heritage. And people, I know New Polonia probably looks down on that. But in Texas, the Germans still play their old polkas. The Czechs do as well. The Poles need to too, because that's our music. The oberek, the mazurek, that's our music and our contribution to music in the world. And we not need to be afraid of that or be ashamed of that. I like country, I like modern music, I like everything, but that's what makes us Polish. And some of this other is stuff we've adopted, and that's our roots. We need to remember that that's what we brought to the table. If you ever heard of Johnny Cash, have you ever listened to his song? Do you like Johnny Cash? I love Johnny Cash. Every one of them is a polka. You dance a polka if you're going to dance to his music, every one of them are a polka. Now go back and re-listen to those and see if I'm not right. This is our dozinki in Chapel Hill. It's not as big and pretty as y'all's, but I've been doing this for 14, 15 years there, trying to keep the traditions alive in Chapel Hill. This is me and my wife and our dozinki. And then I'm real proud of this. We did this when we hosted the PACT. These are 18-foot tall, and this is and they're in Kuyavi, Struye, from the Kuyavi region. And so this is just some of us, but we had a bigger group than that. That's just the only picture I had to put in there. This is Our Lady of Czestochowa, one of the biggest dozinkis in Texas. Very beautiful every year, and we are honored to participate. This is when we were celebrating in Chapel Hill. This is all that we had PACT there, like we had in New Waverly, we had in Chapel Hill. We had 575 people come to that in Chapel Hill. This is the group right here. I even brought musicians over from Pobiedziska to play for that, because that's where most of us were from that region. And that's, we're given the bread and salt. That's the A&M Polish Club at one of the meetings. This is my house when we had something Christmas like this Saturday. The tree is up. I know the tree is up too early, but when I'm having parties, we got to have the tree. We will do our Vigilia, and we will do a Polish Christmas tree on Vigilia, and everything on it will be from Poland or handmade, and we will do a fresh tree on Vigilia. But this is just for, because we're American and people expect a tree. That's our Kolendi. I've had 2 or 3 different big groups over for Kolendi. Our Kolendi in Chapel Hill this year will be January 1. I encourage you to come with your parents, friends, and whatever. We'll be at 12 o'clock till 6 o'clock, and then we'll have mass. We'll go to 3 or 4 different farms. We generally have 150 people. We'll have a school bus this year. The Consul General is paying for the bus. I have paid for the bus the last 14 years. It's $600 to rent it. I'm very happy that the Consul General is going to help. And also he always comes as well. So I'm very proud of that. Also, he's paying for, I'm bringing a musician that plays a nice accordion from Columbus, Ohio. We're going to have our local guys, but I'm always trying to bring somebody in special for that day. This is Kolendi 1 year in front of my great-grandparents' house that my sister lives in. This is Easter Sunday, Wielka Nuts. And then also you can see up here over the door, I still do the 20 over Kashmir, Malachi, and Valimir over the door. Easter time, and then the blessing of the baskets. We still do that in College Station. This is Kathy and I at our 35th wedding anniversary when we did our 35th. We did it in Polski Stroja of the time. The dress she's wearing came out of a museum. It's 100 years old. It hadn't been worn since it got put in the museum. They took it out just for my wife that day and put it back in the museum. This is us right there from that day. I had 45 people from Texas with me. Most of them family. That's the wedding. There were 150 people there that day, and it was put on and paid for by my Polish friends. This A&M group, when I do my student exchange, I told y'all that I brought that if you're interested. We'll go to we'll meet with the government stuff. And this is the Polish kids on the other side. I always take them downtown Chapel Hill and see some of the old buildings. I had Polish Day in the Capitol here a few years ago. 2014, we're going to do it again when we have the bust of Arzinski. We're going to have a big deal. I had about 300 people here that day, and that's that day as well. Bible came and danced, and we did that in the Rotunda. Some of you might have been there. I played at a Polish wedding last year or 2 years ago for this couple. They won Mom Talent, second in all of Poland out of 8,000 entries, the only musical group to make the top 10, and they were second. And they asked me to come play I played the father-daughter dance for them back, because we've had them over here 6, 8 times. My son is the one that found them on Facebook. We became friends. I'm like the Teksański Jade. Okay. So they got a little baby now. This is me with different things I've done. The Marszałek from Toron, Lech Wałęsa, the Minister of Agriculture, Krzysztof Ordanowski. I'm with President Gaida a second time. I've been with him 3 or 4 times, Krusecki. This needs to be updated. I've had over 800 people exchanged, over 150 different bilateral visits. Next week will be another one. And people that I've exchanged over the last 10 years. That's when I got the medal from Duda. He was with Trump that day. This was in 2016. He held up the ceremony till he could get from the Warsaw Chopin Airport to put it on me himself. And that day was National Ag Day. There were 1,000 people there from all over Poland, and I was the only one to receive a medal that day. And he hugged me like this, which was, you're not supposed to touch the president. But I mean, he did it. I didn't. I thought I was going to get shot. But anyway, this here was this September when I received an honorary doctorate. There were 200 people there. There were university presidents from every major city in the entire country. I was very honored and very touched to be given an honorary doctorate from the largest and oldest ag university in the country, the 4th largest on the continent. So it's not a little university. And then the cap I'm wearing up there is the cap they give you as a symbol that you received that. 2 people that I know in my life that I recognize that have also received this honor. One was Norman Borlaug, the only agriculturalist to ever win the Nobel Peace Prize. He's the father of the Green Revolution. He saved millions of people with his wheat varieties. And the other one that received this as well was St. John Paul II. I was honored enough to help host Duda a couple of years ago when he came to Houston. He promised me that he was going to come next time to A&M to the Bush School, and we're going to give a lecture when they come over here too. Okay. All right. This is my last slide, and I've got something pretty to show. And I'm going to read this to you, okay? Because I think it's really important. If Polonia and Texas is to survive, we got to work together as one Polonia. That's okay, including old and new Polonia and all activities, events, and projects. UT, A&M, Texas Tech, Sam Houston, I don't care. We are one blood. We are one ethnic group. We have to stick together. There is no future Polonia without new immigrants. They help revitalize and they've helped re-energize me, okay? And the influx of new Polish immigrants keeps our culture and heritage alive and strong. We must invest in our youth. That's why I've been on some of your rear end for a long time to help get something started. Not only here, we're talking about Texas Tech right now too, getting a club started. We got one at A&M. Let's get some more going. And then let's do some Zooms with Ohio, Columbus, Pennsylvania, where they've got clubs around the country, and reach out to them. We're one Polonia. You never know when you meet somebody in the university setting like this, and in 20 years from now, you're going to be across the table doing business and you already having a relationship. That speeds the business process up tenfold. Okay. In addition, there's no future Polonia without recognizing all of Texas Polonia, including all of rural and urban Polish communities. Now that's Texas. And I'm proud to be a Texan. I'm proud to be American. I'm really proud to be Polish. That's all I have. And if there's some questions, this is a real cowboy cattle drive that happens twice a year up in Bay City. These guys are crossing the Colorado River, which is right up here, the same river that feeds into the Gulf of Mexico. These cattle are driven across the river to Matagorda Island. Then October, they come back with their babies. They're pregnant right now, and they'll come back with their babies, and they'll sell the babies in winter on the mainland, and they'll go back to the island in the summertime. I put that in there because these guys are from Bay City, and Bay City Catholic Church was started by Polish immigrants. And some of those descendants at Cowboys have some Polish in them. So thank y'all for having me. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
The photos of your family as well as the photos of Brian in its early heyday, are these photos that were passed along through your family and that you scanned or that you found?
The family pictures were in the family, and I've got more. I need to update this. I've got more since I did this, okay? And the ones of the city were done. I got those from the city. Brenham and also Brian. But I thought that was pretty cool because it kind of shows you what it looked like when they got here. You know what I mean? And how, you know, how, I mean, there just wasn't a McDonald's and a HEB everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Yes, ma'am.
I grew up in College Station, so this was really special to hear. I didn't know a lot about the history. And I was wondering if you had any insight as to sort of maybe more of like an integration of the Polish community have. Like I know Snook, for example, kind of maintains that like it's very distinct Czech. So I was wondering, like, I would just love to know more about like the Polish heritage in Bryan College Station and sort of how it got integrated into the community instead of maybe being a little more separate. I just had never heard about it, so I'm excited.
Okay, I was at a Republican gathering yesterday for the announcement of Commissioner for Precinct 2. And I ran in, the guy running is Kondola, his dad was Polish. I ran, and the county judge's wife there, she was a Dominic and she's Polish. I ran into Bainski, the former mayor, Brian, and he's Polish. And then I met a new guy, Boronski or something like that. I forgot his last name. I didn't realize there were so many, and then I'm Polish. And there were 5 people right there in that group of about 30 people there where he's making his announcement. We've blended into the community. We've intermarried. Like my wife's is Irish, Welsh, and Scottish, English. And so our kids are half Polish, but they're very involved in their heritage and their background. And but the same thing happened throughout the Brazos Valley. But you got communities like Bremond that are still very Polish, and there's a lot of 100% still Polish, and they have Polish days there. They've had them now for about 35 years, and I have played at every Polish day since day one. The first street dance, I'm the one that played on the street with my accordion. And then several people came out, and we just had a makeshift band and had a street dance. But I've played ever since then. Chapel Hill is still very, very close to their roots. Anderson is very, very close. You can still hear Polish being spoken. If you go to the PACT website, Polish American Council of Texas, I interviewed my parents in the Wielkopolska dialect, if you want to hear us speaking in that dialect. And then I went to Pana Maria and I had them, and I got that documented because I wanted both dialects because they were both from Prushi. And those two dialects are still here. And I wanted to get it before we lose it. And I moderated both of them, and I can understand everything they're saying in the Śląsk language because it's very close to ours because it was still all 19th century. Now they've got 10% vocabulary, maybe different than we do. And if you learn those, you can figure it out. But anyway, if you want to hear those two dialects from the Brazos Valley or from the Pana Maria, that's on our website. Also, some of this music that I play and sing in that dialect is on the website too. Go to Culture, and you can hear that music being played. Brian Marshall is an excellent violinist, excellent, self-taught, doesn't read any music, but he's as good a Texas country fiddle player and Polish music fiddle player we have in the state of Texas. Very proud of Brian Marshall, that he's kept that alive. And he's done a lot of research on the music and history, and that's where I got about half that information from that other up there about the music was from Brian, and then I found some other stuff as I kept going a little further. Great questions. The Catholic Church in Bryan, a lot of people don't realize, it was 7 Polish families, 3 Czech, 1 German, and 1 French. Boonville, you know where Boonville is? Mr. Boonville was a Catholic Frenchman. He was one of the ones of the however many 12 families that started that Catholic Church, 1873. The altar on the inside is Święta Kazimierz, and they're holding a Polish flag. And Father John, that was there for 40 years, 30 years, whatever, didn't know that was a Polish saint. I said, that's a Polish flag. I mean, you know, so anyway, and I said, he's got a crown and not a coronet. A bishop would have like a coronet, but he has a crown. So he's a prince, and that's who that was. Yes, ma'am.
Did you mention Navasota as well?
Yes, I need to mention Meyer Levi again.
Okay, yeah.
Meyer Levi, as I said, was a clerk. He owned 3 stores. He had a brother named Samuel. And they're all buried in the cemetery. I spent 4 hours about 3 weeks ago on that Saturday. I think I sent all the information I found to Nathan. And they were all from Poznan or Kanica, all in that area. And it's written on their tombstone. They were Polish Jews. And Meyer Levi was asked by 12 plantation owners right after the Civil War to go to Poland because they knew that some of those people were looking for a better life. And we're trying to escape there, and we're willing to leave. So he went back, recruited 120 people, came back, half went to New Waverly, half went to Industry, which is Austin County, and in that area, and some Chapel Hill too, but those were all mixed in there. And but Meyer Levi was responsible for bringing, and then those 120 wrote back home, just like when Machagamba brought the first group of 100 families to Pana Maria, they wrote back home. And then the 2 groups started coming from Wielkopolska, Kujawi, because that's all one, that Kujawi, Wielkopolska was all Wielkopolska. It was called the Poznan region area anyway, even though the city was the main capital there, but that whole region was called that. And then you had Upper Silesia. But that's really interesting that those 2 groups came about the same time. By 1880, there were more Polish Catholic churches in Texas than any state in the United States. So what happened after 1880? You have to know U.S. history to know our history too. The Industrial Revolution. There were more jobs, and people didn't have to work in the fields. They went to Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, New York, etc. And they went there. And I've got half of my relatives are up there. And I just found out by reading old obituaries that the brothers to some of my great-grandparents half went up there and half came down here then later. Interesting. I love genealogy. I love history. I love Texas history as well. And we're finding out more and more that there were Poles that played a big role in Texas history, but the names were changed because the Poles couldn't write in English. So whoever they tried to phonetically spell their name, and some of these names got butchered. And so it's not pure Polish name written in it. You got to really look to see that it might have been misspelled, that could be a person of Polish descent. So when you're doing your research, be real careful. Don't take it for granted. Or some of them, I just took an English name just to make it easier. If they had a name like Mazurkiewicz, they might have just said Smith. I know families that last name was Piątek and they changed it to Friday because that's what that means in Polish. There's a Felipe name in Anderson, and they changed their name to Philip. and wrote it in English. And that's what Philip is, Felipe, okay, like a little Felipe. But anyway, great questions. Anything else? I probably kept you longer than I should have. But I'm very passionate about this. I hope that I can inspire a little bit of excitement, a little bit of energy in you about your history. My deal is, as you get older, you got more contacts and more resources. Right now, I know you're trying to study, trying to graduate, trying to get a job, but never forget your roots, never forget your history, and never forget that you stand on the shoulders that came before us. We all do. So come Saturday, we're going to sing some Kalindi. We'll have a little bonfire. We'll have a little fun. If you don't want to drive back, you're welcome to crash at our place. Okay, just let me know. All right, thank y'all for having me.
But Blanco has a festival this weekend, and there is a Polish master fiddler.
Is
I
it
was
Brian?
trying to find out
Brian
the
Marshall's
name.
playing there.
I think so. Is in Blanco is this weekend.
Yeah,
Speaking of fiddlers, if you want to hear the music.
He will be there playing, and I've actually been to some of that. We've actually had Sandowski play, and Brian is a leader in that organization. So he will be there and be involved in helping put that on. They brought Polish fiddlers, they brought Irish fiddlers, they brought Texas country fiddlers. They brought all kinds of folks there to showcase the history of Texas. Thank y'all.
Before everybody leaves, remember that there's desserts, and also let's take a picture
I
if
was about to
possible.
say, before people leave and grab desserts, can we go out to the hallway and take a picture?
Okay, let me share this. I did a film last week at Texas A&M on Pilecki. There's a little information